have heard from our local artist guild that, feel like this is something, that they're sort of working towards doing on their own. And if we were gonna do something like this in a road instead of the Lake Bluff parking lot or some other parking space or Hubbard Park, I mean, we have public spaces, you know, there's been more and more of a trend every year, closing the roads more and more. And it's an inconvenience, you know, for some businesses, and for many residents, it's an inconvenience. So to me, there's not enough here that I would vote in favor of it, but I'm one of 7.
And it is an inconvenience to close roads, there's no question. And we always say it's 2 days, it's not like it's not a week, it's not a month. And there are upsides.
If we were closing the road to fix the road, or to put in a water main, that would be one thing, but you're asking us to close the road to have an art fair, that's not a public, it's not a role of government to sponsor art fairs, so you wanna do it, you know, rent some actual property to do it on. Why should we give you public property that has a public use of using it as a road? It just doesn't make sense to me, but that's just my feeling about it.
Yeah. So we do have the other agenda item that I would like to try to get to, and then we also have a school district meeting that Rosa and Rosick and I are attending, so we are a little tight on time. So I don't know at this moment what we.
I'm a little reluctant, I'm also reluctant to close the road, because we're closing the road so many times now. And these businesses, particularly some of these businesses in this block have been like, you know, our customers can't get to our business, and this will be a weekend. And also the Morning Glory event, that's very popular.
Lakefront Art
No,
Festival's
Lakefront,
pretty big.
Whitefish Bay's just up
Whitefish
the
Bay.
road, Third
Walker's
Ward, you
Plant,
see
yeah.
that. I mean, and we now have the local guild doing the show, and there'll be more activity, I'm sure, so
On that note, could I just say, we've modeled ourselves after the Cedarburg Artists Guild, if you're familiar with it, where they're, I think, been in existence about 30-some years, so they do yearly, like, 3-4 events for the community that are unique to Cedarburg, and we're hoping to create a version of that here in Shorewood, to have unique year-round, not like in and out, just a year-round community support and
a
resource for the community. So that's what we're looking at, and we do feel like having another art event 3 months before, our next show, we're looking for next November at the Atrium, and so.
Won't close the road.
Yeah, no closing of roads, it's at the Atrium, and so we feel like, that's something we'd have to compete against. And when we're just starting to build art, it really would be sort of cutting us off at the knees is when we're trying to plan and build something that's a community resource.
And having an art fair that we would sponsor, let's say at Hubbard Park, that's an incredible resource. Public, people know it in the community, and it leaves the streets open for the businesses as well.
The parking lot would be a good thing.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much for looking at Shorewood to bring the event. I think you've nailed it, that we're very artistically inclined in our village. I would have to say, if you come back next year and if the vote goes down, my biggest advice is to pair with either the local artist guild or the bid, so that they can get some benefit from it as well. This community is only 1.5 square miles, and so our local community organizations we protect like they're our babies. So I think you're hearing the road closure, but I think more importantly it is that, all my questions ahead of you driving were, who are they partnering with, in the community? And so I am a small business, and I know that there's benefits to the arts, but I wouldn't be on Oakland on my capital. So those businesses don't benefit as much, or at all in my case normally. And just remember, if you're coming back, which would be great, if you could partner and find a way to bring business also to the Capitol Drive area in Shorewood. It's again only 1 mile, so. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
We just need a vote.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing some consensus. The 3 of us have some concerns about moving this forward. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget, what our rules are though, do we bring it to the full board even if we don't recommend it, or do we not bring it to the full board?
I don't know.
Because
Yeah,
you do need to vote, just so we have it
With
on the
what the
record.
vote is. Correct. So.
Okay, so it would go to full board even
Recommended
with,
for denial.
that we would
Yeah,
not
it does.
recommend.
Does go forward to the
The-
board.
Okay, yeah, do you wanna vote, you have to vote, you have to vote.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I'll move that we, do not recommend the, this particular festival this summer.
Second.
Okay, I would agree.
Okay, that's three.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay,
Alright.
so, thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, yes.
Yeah, good luck.
And then we also have the
Sure.
also to layer in there. It's gonna be a wild summer. Okay, so if we can move on to the next item pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm gonna transition to the table, but you
Okay,
can start.
yep, so,
Yeah.
One question, when this is brought before the full board, will this be at a public meeting and?
Yeah.
yes, it will be, yes, it will be, in the agenda.
He's here still. Is he?
So, I think it might be.
December
no,
2nd.
yeah, for the next meeting. So
Is when?
December.
December 2nd.
Yes, it'll be at the seven meeting.
Okay, and that's the one that's over in
In
this
the-
room.
Yep.
Yes, I was wondering around because it was 5 or
Yes.
10 minutes
We'll be-
before I
we'll
figured
be
out
in
to
there.
ask somebody else.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, so, we'll move on to the appointment timeline. And do you wanna kind of talk about what you
Yeah, I mean,
created? I think
I
it was
was
pretty
looking at this
helpful.
and there's, okay, first of all, it's small and there's a lot in here. And there's a lot of stuff that is not really related to our workflow. Like there's like, that you have to send out a thank you note or something, whatever. So I tried to do like a workflow. I should have made copies while they were going on and on, but I did send it to Rebecca and Jessica, but basically like the first question is, where do we have vacancies? Those that are appointed by the president are her own process. Those that are reviewed by JP&L, there's a meeting with the clerk, village president, JP&L chair to review what do we have to fill. We notify committee chairs through staff liaison vacancies, ask them for input. Then, after we've done that, then the question is who has applied, so we know what our vacancies is, who has applied. And you compile a Dropbox of applications.
Does anyone have a copy of this so that I can see it?
I can make copies, you make the copy. I was just trying to do, a flow chart of it rather than have a listing of tasks, like I
Okay,
took
yep.
this listing of tasks, cause I don't care about half of these are not of importance to
So
the
would you like to
JP&L
just
committee.
see what, like JP&L and any village board functions,
Well, I think
or?
but I think the
No.
real issue is like, what we talked about the last time was like, where are where are committee chairs coming in, cause they come in at the beginning to say, do you have any ideas, recommendations, and then they come in after JP&L has come up with 3 to 5 names, we go back to, so it's
To
kind
answer her question though, it needs to be complete. The clerk's putting a timeline together because just like any other communication plan that we receive at the board level, it's not always just about what the village board does. That would really, I'd get confused as the president if you cut out everyone but just the board. And I know, how do you feel? I mean,
Well, I think that there's actually like kind of space for both. I think that
That would be
there's,
perfect.
Right,
there's
just
this.
the three.
I was gonna say,
This-
keep this and
yeah,
then
this
make
is
more
just
This
like.
is just to
It's
try
like
to
a
see.
Like the
process.
Yeah, this is a
Right.
process
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah, I was
process-
wondering as I read
Thank you.
through
Yep.
too, how is this all go
Right,
back
so I
and forth?
think, you know, because I do
Sure.
think otherwise,
Yeah.
it's confusing for
Yep.
Sarah to know like what is everything that she needs to do, and then
Yep.
Well,
we've
this
had.
this is a task list for Sarah, but it's not a flow, process flow.
Yes,
Sure.
yeah.
So the first is just where we're determining where we have holes, who has applied. Then we have a meeting to review applications. And I realized after, well, HRC has a slightly different process. But then we and the village president review all the applications, come up with 3 to 5 choices, goes back to committee chairs, and then we talked about them contacting the 3 to 5 people and sort of doing a mini interview or whatever they feel is appropriate. And then they go to the village president, who then comes to the village board. So I feel like we need to have, this isn't laid out in greatest way, but it
Would
is.
you like me to put this
When I-
together in more of a
Well,
nice flow chart format?
I think it just, will help us to just see how the process is supposed to flow. And I'm fine with it. I think this is what we talked about, of
Yeah,
involving
this-
committee chairs at the kind of
Yeah.
at the beginning and at the end, right?
Yeah, cause then they can come up with records. They've
Yes.
got
I don't know, I
people
haven't had time to
that-
digest it, I didn't get an email, so we'll have to wait until
But if
next
if they have a recommendation, they need to have the person fill out an application. So we'll only start from applications in the
Right.
Dropbox.
Is there any feedback to them of who's applied as we meet? That there's feedback, oh, they had some recommendations, but the people haven't applied. I mean, that was one thing I was,
I would like to give, well,
in case we
You mean
miss
like-
somebody
that
on,
messes up the flow, but yes, I see what you're saying.
Like there's
Yeah.
somebody who they would like to have on their
like
committee.
on there. I
Like
mean,
early
some,
conversation.
they just don't, they put in a
Yeah.
bad application.
Every meeting, someone's in the audience and they wanna recommend it, and the person would
Or they
accept it.
really
they
are
don't
like,
have
oh,
it.
we could use somebody with
They
like
could
marketing
look-
background or
right.
something.
Same
to
thing with the
work on.
bid, I mean, but then again, that's a direct thing.
So we send them 3, but if we gave them the whole list of, if somebody misses the process, do they need a
Can
little
I-
earlier involvement? I don't know.
So the chairs, the only thing that I question is about sending them all the applications. The reason we go to the chairs is for
Yeah.
2 things at the very beginning, the clerk, just to make this easy. One is to find out if they're in good standing, which means have they missed a ton of meetings, or do you have any input on this person? So are they in good standing? And then the second reason the clerk goes is to say, is there anyone, not to review applications, but just to say, is there anyone that you feel strongly that has been attending that you feel you wanna recommend? That's what we've been doing. If you guys wanna change it, that's fine, but, and then, once I confer with Jessica, which was on the last one, the JP&L chair, only because sometimes I'm on the fence and I want a second opinion, so for those that I haven't already, and the JP&L chair and the president it's not just me, I actually meet with them, with the person, so that, before I do my,
For what are you talking,
appointments.
for what?
Step 1,
For your appointments as president?
Yep, I
Well,
always
you
meet-
can do whatever you want.
But it would be nice to have the complete process if we're outlining it. So, anyhow, my thought is, once the chair says this person who's being reappointed, their second term, is in good standing, they say this back to Sarah, and then they'll say, and this lady has been, coming for most of the meetings in the audience, and I really would like you to consider her. She'll find out if they have an application, and then most likely that will go to the JP&L committee.
Right.
I'll send it over, and then you guys can. But I don't know about sending all the applicants to the
Well,
to the
no.
chairs.
But
won't
application,
work.
but
It's
applications
not their
are,
job.
it's public record, right? I mean, can't we just say to the committee chairs, here's the Dropbox with all the applications?
But
look
it's
and
not
if you
our
wanna
job
review
to
we-
pick the members,
and
it's
and
ours.
I feel like last year, what we did, and if my memory serves me correctly, was we did give them, a handful
Yeah,
of.
we
After
did.
JP&L.
Of, these 3 or 5 people applied,
Yeah.
kind of, what do you think about them? We would be okay with any of them.
Right.
And I
Wait,
think-
that's
Right.
That's
here,
So you're-
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's okay now that I think about it, because you got people applying to like 7
Right,
committees.
yeah.
So
Right.
you can't say, here's the senior, you get
Right.
all these people, and we're all in the process of saying, well, this person's good, really good over here, so we better try to get them on this committee. So trying to juggle all the people, so yeah, I think it's, now that I think about it, if we send them 3 to 5, or, let them get
If you
involved.
need to,
If we
sometimes
need
you don't
to.
even need to,
Right.
sometimes you guys all 3, or, 3,
Right, yeah.
we'd say, this one's great, we've seen, we know,
It's
the
okay.
application's outstanding, we'll
But
pick
what's
up.
added to here is when we send 3 to 5, then they contact the person and talk to the person. I mean, that is the part that we used to do that we don't do. And I mean, I think we've all kind of agreed, we as a committee don't wanna sit here and interview every person who submits an
Yeah.
application at the same time
Right.
before we make that final determination. That, I mean, it's putting something on the committee chair that's probably at least a couple hours of work to contact people and have a conversation with them, but, I mean, they could dole it out to other people on the committee too, they don't have to do it themselves.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that, have some point of contact, and then they can kind of make their final choice.
And they're also on that committee,
Yeah,
I don't feel
right.
as good about making a decision for who's
Right.
gonna be on the conservation committee, because, personally, I've never been on the conservation committee, but, the chair knows who's been in the audience and who's,
Right.
and what their niche need
Yeah.
might be, so I feel good about that.
Yeah,
I
so
feel
too.
great about it, but sometimes, I'm gonna tell you what happens, because we send them the 3 to 5, and they'll send back and say, they're all qualified.
Will they need to,
Then make a decision.
Yeah, then we'll-
why don't I add on here, review, attendance and review if member is in good standing, so we sort of have, so we're sort of checking in with them at the beginning of the process. Then JP&L sort of comes up with a short list, but the committee chairs, get to do a little bit of interviewing and
So-
make the final recommendation to the village.
As long as it
Last-
meets the
Yeah, for the
timeline.
last time, all the
So
committee
long.
chairs were happy with the recommendations of the applications that were sent. So everyone, nobody had any complaints about that. So the big thing is, just meeting that timeline, cause it's such a fast turnaround time. And as long as they're aware that that's what the turnaround time is.
And my only other concern, please, is, because we have to deal with this, myself and the clerk, so, my only other concern is, a lot of times, the person that you wanna recommend decides they don't want it anymore, okay? And so, if we keep it at the committee level, I feel very strongly, and I don't know how to express it, that it stays with the elected officials. We can ask for the recommendations, just like last year, and attendance, but it is our job to pick, and most of the time, sometimes we appoint like 3 people that JP&L say, and then they'll come back and say, they declined, and then does it go back to the chairs to ask them for?
But when we have step 4 here, the committee chairs are gonna do what they didn't do last year, they're gonna contact before, so they will know if somebody says, I'm not interested anymore, then they'll go to the
Yeah.
next person on the list.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure what is the big, press about getting this done by a certain time. I mean, if it goes
It
past,
has to be June, because they elect officers in June, so it's the month of May. The month of May, and 1 board meeting.
It's they
It's
need
very
to be
important.
trained and
There's a
appointed
training-
in May.
Yeah.
Right, they all have a meeting, and everyone knows we've